Welcome to the Dad Task Force, where the goal is for equipped men to equip men to be better fathers. And today is no different. This is our weekly podcast, which will come out tomorrow. And you know what? There's a couple of things on the horizon, I guess. So StreamKits is still a sponsor, and that's Task Force 15 for 15% off. But you'll hear that ad as it rolls later in the episode. And then today, I'm actually also sponsoring this episode with DADComm. DADComm is part of the TacticalTalker.com. It's the first series that we're coming out with for dads. It is. So habits are built in 21 days, right?
Right.
It takes 21 days to build a habit. So what DADComm is, it is a 21-day series that offers anywhere from just a couple minutes all the way up to 10 minutes of instruction, advice. This is how you do these things, with a practical daily challenge at the end that builds on the skills as you go through this 3-week journey. Okay. So you have kids their entire life, right? Even if they don't live in your house, it doesn't mean that you can't have a good relationship with them. And you might have a great relationship with them, but the purpose of DADComm is to make that a better relationship. Now, in full transparency, I was in the military, I was a cop, and I was very much like everybody else in these industries tied to my career.
Right.
And I think that's a dad thing too. She focus on provision. And what lacks is how much you connect with your kids and how much you really dial into it. And after leaving law enforcement and really trying to refocus the attention that I have for my kids, what I can tell you is that now I have a better relationship. They actually bring information to me. They tell me things. They share information. And the purpose of DADComm is to give you that same result. So in 21 days, you get basically a daily challenge and a daily lesson. And then you get access to a private dads only Facebook group for those that have taken the class, where you can share your successes. You can ask questions about things that happened that didn't work out the way you thought they were. You also get a free copy ebook of DADComm, 21 Days to a Better Relationship with Your Kid, which is actually just the printed version. So if you want the book and you don't want to go through the video series, the book will be available on Amazon next week. Other than that, I just want to be very clear. We're in a pre-launch status. So although everything is recorded, it's not live on the website yet, and hopefully it will be by the end of this week. And for pre-launch, you get the free book, you get a discounted cost of coming into it, and then once we go into the full swing, the costs will go up, and everything will get dialed in to meet the needs of fathers everywhere that want to join a part of this.
That's awesome.
So it's a long intro for an ad read, but it's the benefit of it being my product.
Yeah.
And when you launch something, I'll give you all the time you want to chit chat about it. So
yeah, I'm excited.
All right, man. This is, I think, the second week in a row I've said, what do you want to talk about? And you said this week,
we're doing helicopter
parenting. All right. So now you told me that, and I went and I pulled all the data that I could find, and it all basically says the same thing, but I want to hear your perspective.
Yeah, my perspective. So I was fortunate that I wasn't helicopter parented. And when I originally proposed this idea, I did a lot of thinking around why I feel like I wasn't helicopter parented. And I did also when I've seen helicopter parenting.
Sure.
And part of the reason I tried not to be a helicopter parent is because, man, it does not lead to a good place down the road. So.
It's funny you say that. Over and over, all of the websites said the same thing. There are pros to helicopter parenting, but a majority of the benefits are for the parent.
Right.
So, can you, and we'll get into the nuts and bolts, and I'll pull I'll pull that up. But let's just have the conversation first. What is helicopter parenting? Just in case somebody doesn't realize that's what they're doing.
Yeah, helicopter parenting. I mean, it changes like the older your kid gets, right? Obviously, when you've got a toddler, you're very highly involved in every single thing that they're doing, right? You're not going to leave like a 1-year-old kid to like their devices and just let them do it, right? But the older they get, it's still being involved in every single thing that they are doing and not letting them like explore or like not letting them take risks or take chances or make their own decisions. And it's like every single decision that kid comes across is like some decision that you've made for them.
Yeah. So let's just say, scenario time. You're out and about, you're coaching, and then you've got a helicopter parent of one of your team members. How do you address that?
Oh, it's interesting. I don't know if this was just by happenstance or if it was like a subliminal thing. We have a code of conduct for our team, and it is that like coach is coach, and you are there to support your kid. And so, especially during practice, it's okay. Like if you want to like chime in and like echo the thoughts of the coach or like what the coaching is, but like coming in and like Beauregarding your way past the coach and like, that's a no. That's not going to happen. And that's why we have it in our code of conduct. Okay. But theoretically, hypothetically, if it were to happen, it would be tough because you don't want to like reprimand this parent in front of their kid. One, that's like not good for anybody involved.
Oh, you don't? We're not doing that?
But you do need to like let them know it's not okay. So it's like a fine line.
Have you had to do that?
I have not. So I got I guess it's less by happenstance and more of like just environments I've been in. When I coached at J. Sarah back in California, our head coach had a rule that like the parents didn't talk to the assistant coaches. And that I think kind of set the foundation that I was like, okay, you do need to draw a line with the parents. Sure. And then he also had like a 24-hour rule. Like you couldn't come to the coaches within 24 hours. And then parents like weren't allowed on the field during practice. And so there were like all these guardrails kind of in place to like prevent that helicopter parenting. Cause especially like the older your kid gets, the more stakes are involved. The easier it is for that parent to feel like they need to be involved.
Oh,
like,
for sure.
This needs to go the way I want it to go.
I think that's starting to be the trend in the high school sports, at least, because I know that because my kid dances for high school, the coaches have, hey, let your kid advocate for themselves.
DADComm, if you're into content creation, whether you're a streamer, a podcaster, an influencer, or you have a more traditional production need for your content, StreamKits has you covered. From the solo IRL backpack man on the street interview kit, all the way up to a more studio quality 4-camera, 4-audio, stable mount system, they have what you're looking for. Look, in the last year, I filmed plenty of training content for some pretty big clients, and what I started off with was my phone. Then I upgraded to a fancy DSLR, but I had to buy tripods, I had to buy lenses, I had to buy audio interfaces and microphones, and as the camera upgrade or the phone upgrades, now I've got to buy different interfaces so that audio continues to work, and it just keeps draining the bank account for equipment just to put the content out. Now, with StreamKits, you get everything that you need in every package. And you get a camera, you get a couple of lenses, you get the mounting equipment, you get the audio interface, unless you choose not to get the audio interface, and you get high quality production level equipment that's super affordable to allow you to start streaming your content today. Now let's just put it into perspective. A The most expensive kit on their website is 4 cameras, 4 microphones, 4 headsets, all of the interface stuff that all comes together and comes out one USB cord into your computer. $4,199. Go to Amazon and get a dual camera entry-level streaming setup. You're gonna look at about $4,500. Do the math. And it gets better. If you want a 3-camera entry-level broadcasting system for your production quality, $15,000. But StreamKits is a third of that price with 4 cameras, 4 microphones, 4 headsets, all the stuff you need to put it together to make it look cool and then get you on the road to streaming today. Those other systems are great. They probably work really well, but you have to have a learning curve to understand how to use the camera, how to set it up, how to manage lighting, how to manage the data transfer, how to get everything to interoperate and connect so that it shows up on your computer. That takes time. The more time it takes to learn these things, the less time you have to actually put your content out, which then is affecting your bottom line because now you're not making money on your content because you're stuck at the very beginning trying to get ready to run the race. StreamKit systems offer a simple plug-and-play design that shouldn't take you more than 5 minutes to put together and get going. And with discount code TASKFORCE15, you get an additional 15% off of production quality equipment that's so easy to use because it's plug-and-play that you can start sharing your content with the rest of us right now. So go to streamkits.com and enter TASKFORCE15 at checkout.
Right.
If you're upset about something, give it 24 hours before you bring it up.
Yeah.
So I think that's a great idea because at the end of the day, what is the purpose of a parent? And this isn't necessarily specifically dads, but definitely dads. Let me ask you that, I guess. What is the purpose of parenting?
Purpose of parenting is to grow your kids into like self-sufficient and contributing human beings in this world. So.
In other words, like you're preparing your kid for the road ahead. You're not constantly repaving the road in front of them so that they don't hit a pothole, right?
Right.
So you're not doing your kids any favors. So back off a little bit, I guess. This is what the internet said, and let's see what you say in comparison. The term helicopter parenting describes parents who are over-involved in their children's lives. True. Do you believe that or no?
I believe,
okay.
Yeah.
Helicopter parenting includes cleaning their teenager's room, overseeing their homework, monitoring their diet or exercise, and negotiating their conflicts with their friends.
Ooh. So that's like when you said over-involved, it's like that's kind of subjective, right?
It is subjective, yeah.
And so, like, where do you draw the line of like over? And so, yeah, like you can't solve your kids' problems with their friends. Can you give them advice? I think so.
Yeah.
But you can't like be like, hey, Teddy, you need to come over here and sit down with Susie. Hey, you guys need to talk this out right now, and I'm going to sit here. I'm going to be a part of it.
I'm going to mediate this conflict. Yeah, that doesn't work.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to point out, it says monitoring their diet or exercise. Now, this is, just to be clear, a generic version. If you got a kid with an eating disorder or a kid that has like some significant health issues, obviously monitoring a diet and exercise is critical to their survival. So that's not what this is. Just want to point that out to be clear. And that's the disclaimer.
Right.
Not to call back to the Hard Talks episode for this month, but there is a significant correlation to eating disorders and suicidal tendencies.
Of course.
So
right.
they just manage that.
Right. That was one that I kind of thought was like, that's interesting. Because I do think there are situations where like a parent does need to be involved outside of like the eating disorder one.
Sure.
One that comes to mind just because I've been in sports my whole life. And like, I don't know, I was a kid who had a really hard time putting on weight in high school. And like, I didn't understand counting calories. I didn't understand like any of that. There is a point where like your parents should probably be involved with that.
I think if you're guiding your kid towards a goal, right?
Right.
Not No.
Right.
No. Don't eat that. Only eat this.
Right. Yeah. That's where you got to draw the line.
Yeah.
Right. So.
And of course, unless they're, toddler. Causes of helicopter parenting, including feeling anxious for your own child, trying to overcompensate for your own neglectful parenting, judging your parenting skills by your children's accomplishments and behaviors.
So tying like your success as a parent to your kid's success.
Yeah, vicarious.
Right.
Parents can work on finding a happy medium between helicopter parenting and hands-off parenting. So the opposite of helicoptering is free range. Now, I like the idea of free range parenting. Let your kid make mistakes. Let your kid, fail. When you fail, you learn what didn't work and what not to do next time.
Absolutely.
But there are some failures that could be avoided with wisdom and guidance. So there's that.
Yeah, I think with that, like hands-off parenting is like the extreme opposite of helicopter parenting, right?
Yeah.
There's like, to your point, there's benefit of like letting your kid make mistakes, but there's like, I think hands-off parenting is probably like, I'll see you later on. Like, go do what you want to do for today. I'll see you tonight.
Yeah, for
sure. I think like, I don't know, like growing up, I didn't have a curfew, and like my mom never really like was like, hey, you like need to be doing this or anything like that. But she wasn't hands off. What she countered that with was like, I had a ton of responsibility.
Okay.
And so I think if you're going to be hands off, you've got to lay out and like give your kid responsibility, because in turn, like that keeps them from doing stupid stuff most of the time.
Are you a firstborn?
I'm a middle child.
Middle child. Interesting. So as a firstborn, I had a curfew and responsibility, but I also had like my own job. I had jobs and school sports and school activities and things. So like I think like a toss-up is a combination of things, right? So,
right. Yeah.
Interesting. All right. Now, just pros of helicopter parenting. More satisfying for the parents as they feel happy about playing their role. Check. Children get enough hand-holding, and they are reduced chances of being neglected. So it's hard to neglect a kid that you breathe for. This style also makes the child feel more secure, and most of the time the adults are involved in their life, which is, important, especially as we talk about being a dad. Like, being involved is critical to the development of the child. Mm-hmm. Now, the cons. Children can lose their confidence.
Right.
They become dependent on the adult. And you can always see it, like, hey, what do you want to do? And the kid goes, I don't know, Mom.
Yeah.
What do I do? And they're like 17 or 18 years old, right? So,
right.
These kids often fail to develop essential life skills, and they do not know how to handle and overcome failure. Now, these are all cited sources, and we'll cite them in the episode details.
Yeah.
Now, going back to what you said about healthline.org, the different age brackets, toddlers, trying to prevent every minor fall from avoiding age-appropriate risks. And then I thought that was and that age-appropriate risk actually lands into every category, because what is an age-appropriate risk for a toddler?
That comes down to you just identifying, like, if my kid falls, is he or she going to get seriously injured, or they're going to scrape their elbow? So.
And then how do you respond when your kid falls? Or do you just sit there and have that stoic look to see how they're going to respond? And you let them make the decision, all right, am I okay? Or do I need to ham it up for the gram or mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, whomever?
Right. The fall's always worse if grandma or grandpa are there. Because the kid's going to react how you react. If you have a big reaction, they're going to be like, oh my gosh, something tragic just happened. Oh my God, my arm's falling off.
What do you, so what would you say? Let's just say the neighbor came over. They're like, hey man, I've been listening to you guys' show. And I'm struggling. Like my wife she's a helicopter parent. I'm more of a free range parent. How do I communicate my perspectives without creating division in the parental unit?
It's a great question. I think this is science backed. I could be 100% off my rocker here, but I think what I've seen around is that just by nature of being a mother, like they're naturally more nurturing,
Yeah.
right? And so you've got to understand that, like as the husband and as a man, like their instinct is to nurture and to keep this kid alive. And so you can't just be like, dude, you're helicopter parent. You need to relax, because to them, like, again, we're going to go back, like there's a fine line between helicopter parenting and being involved and caring.
For sure.
And so it's like, you don't have to nitpick every situation, but there's going to be clear times where you can just step in or even talk to your significant other afterwards and be like, hey, this is what happened. I don't know if like being super involved in that moment would have necessarily helped the situation or hurt the situation. Right. So.
Yeah, that's interesting to consider. So when I was a cop, you have to go out and investigate like traffic collisions, right? And you have to determine the primary collision factor, the PCF. What is the PCF? And so you have this car did this and that car did that, and then all of these subsequent events happened. But you break down to the core elements, and the question you have to ask is, what is the one thing that, had it not happened, would have caused this whole thing to never have happened? And it's usually one car made a bad turn, or somebody did something stupid, or then that is the primary collision factor, right? So if as a parent, and you're like the nurturing, over nurturing person, right? You're like, would this have happened if you were involved? Does this happen if you're not involved?
Right.
Does this escalate because you're involved? Does it, like, you have to have some objective look at it, because there are other contributing factors. Like, so what if somebody's on their phone, right? And they're speeding.
Right.
If I get rear-ended, generally speed is the primary collision factor. I was going at a speed that was unsafe for those conditions.
Didn't allow me to stop.
I didn't allow you to stop in time. Well, I was only going 10 miles an hour. Sure. However, in this moment, the correct speed to be going in this situation was 0.
Right.
You're still speeding. It's the basic speed law. If my kid falls down because, or falls off a toy in the backyard because I wasn't watching them, is that my fault or is that their fault? That depends. How old are they?
Yeah. How many times have they been on this toy? Did it go perfectly fine?
Yeah.
10 times. It's like keep up with the like driving metaphor, right? Like just because you rear-end somebody one time or get rear-ended doesn't mean you're going to stop driving.
It's true. Yeah, and we have to just look at things from the perspective of what is best for the kid, not what's best for me. And it's hard to do because there's an increase in anxiety and fear as the world gets more transparent with the things that are happening around it. So schools are scared. People are scared about what happens in schools because of the news. They're scared about human trafficking and kidnappers, and they're scared about all of these different things. And you never know how unsafe you are until you're made aware of how unsafe you are. And now I've got all these fears, and like,
what do I do?
How do I wrap my kid in bubble wrap and keep them safe? Well, how do they problem solve that situation if you're not there? Now, here's a situation. I honestly don't know if the situation is suspicious or just, it is suspicious, but it's a matter of perspective. So my wife and I were running errands over the weekend, and my middle and youngest kid took the dogs for a walk. And they said, we get a phone call, hey, there's this guy that's weird. I said, okay. What's happening? Like, talk me through what's happening. And she goes, well, he passed by and he was on the phone. Then he stopped and he turned around, and then he drove by again, and he had his phone out the window as if he were recording us. And then he pulled over and stopped and then watched us in his rearview mirror. Suspicious, right? Like, that's
Suspicious,
weird.
Yeah.
And, they didn't. I was like, well, this is what you need to do. Like, first of all, based on where you are, you need to go to this area because there's people there. And
right.
I mean, I'm in another city at this point. Like, we're running errands, like groceries.
Right.
There's no way I'm getting there fast enough to see anything. And technically, suspicious, but no crime has really been has occurred that you can articulate. And she didn't have identifying information, and there's a lot going on. Like, the youngest kid's being kind of a pain, and the dogs are being a pain, and it's just kind of uncontrolled chaos. But what she took away from that is, this is what I should do in this situation. I'm going to take pictures of the car and the person. I'm going to FaceTime you so that you can also see it. Right. I'm going to text these out so that you have access to them. And then I'm going to stay in a safe location.
Right.
Until I'm confident that it's safe, because I have a responsibility to keep me safe and my brother safe. And then ultimately that was her. And we talked about it again yesterday, and she was like, next time, this is what I would do differently. And as a dad, I'm thinking, man, I am really proud of that line of thinking.
Right.
I've been going up and down the road in the area that this happened, looking for a car that matched that description just to do my own investigation. But it was, I know a lot of parents that would just lose their cool immediately and then like ring the bells and whistles. And you got to understand, like, there's only so much you can do. Like, without a crime, you really can't compel a whole lot of information. So it's
right.
It's tough. But she was thinking about the worst possible scenario, and she was trying to avoid that, and that's why she made the decisions that she made in that moment. I'm pretty proud of her for that.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. Now, how do you, like, let's say, back to the neighbor scenario, like your neighbor comes and he's asking you like, hey, we had this situation. Now, like, I'm freaking out. My wife's freaking out. Like, we don't even want to let our kid out of our sight now because what if this happens? Like, how do you prevent like that from being a triggering event to being a helicopter parent?
You can't, honestly. Like, I sit back and, going, sometimes knowing information is the worst because you're like, oh my gosh, this is horrible, right? But it's the way, if you live in the shoulda, coulda, wouldas, or the what ifs, you're constantly living in a land of make believe.
Right.
It's different when you're using the shoulda, coulda, wouldas, and the what ifs in order to formulate a plan of action in the event these things were to ever happen. It's good to have a plan because then you're responding to that thing in a way that's pre-designed by you. So you have to, not to get too deep into this, if you have a plan and I have a plan and they're counter to each other. So let's say this comes from John Boyd's fighter pilot. He was a fighter pilot, right? So this is the OODA loop. If you're on one side and I'm on the other and we're in airplanes and we're fighting each other, the way I win this dogfight is I observe the problem, orient myself to the problem, make a decision, and execute and act on my decision. faster than you.
Right.
As long as I can make a decision faster than you, then you are constantly reacting to me. Having a plan speeds up that process, because now if I'm placed in this situation, I've at least considered what my options are. If I say alert to the area around me, I'm already a step ahead of the game. As a parent, we have to put ourselves, especially the dad, in that protection role. You kind of need to sit down and just, don't scare your kids, but also give like sound situational awareness advice. Like, stay off your phone when you're walking down the street.
Right.
Take your earbuds out of your ear. I know it's cool to, work at a drive-through or walk wherever you're with both earbuds in, but you know what? What you're doing is you're setting yourself up for failure, because now you are subject to being,
You're distracted, and you're willingly distracted in that moment, which is what they want. But I was hoping you would answer it that way, because it kind of brings everything full circle, right? Like, talked about like, how do you know what is safe for a toddler to do and what's dangerous? And it's like you allowing them to like do dangerous things safely throughout their life, right? Like, what's dangerous to a 1-year-old isn't dangerous to a 2-year-old, but the 2-year-old now has new things that are like that line is now raising.
The training and experience based on past interactions.
Yeah. And they learn how to like adapt and make those decisions as those challenges get bigger and bigger, and those risks get bigger and bigger. So.
Not to oversimplify neural science. However, kids have slick brains when they're born because they have no life experience. And then as they experience things, they go to bed, their brain figures out what's good, what's bad. And then whatever it keeps, it develops a neural pathway. So that way, when presented with similar stimulus in the future, they have a recall effect to go back to that memory. Mm-hmm. This is what happened in that moment. This is how I should act now in order to stay safe, because ultimately the goal of the brain is to keep its host alive and safe. So exposure is probably one of the most beneficial components to keeping your kid on both feet.
Right. Yeah. And I think that, like, again, not to oversimplify it, but we do it in a lot of things, right? Like surfing. You teach your kid how to surf. Like, you're not throwing them on a shortboard out there on like 6-7 foot waves their first time out there. You're putting them on a longboard on some little wakes and like little ripples.
Let them get used to it.
Let them get used to it. And then eventually, like, the first time they're on that freaking board and on that wave, they're like freaking out. They're thinking worst case scenario. Then they get used to that. And then like they learn to get better and better. Eventually, like, the board gets shorter, the waves get bigger, and so it's the same thing.
I run the safety team at our church, and people that want to sign up to be part of the security element, they have to go through an interview process. And the first question I ask is, have you ever been punched in the face? And the reason I ask that isn't to see if they're a combatant or an MMA type person. It's because if you've been punched in the face, you then understand the importance of de-escalation, because nobody likes to be punched in the face.
Right.
So you have something like, I didn't like that, so how do I solve this problem without escalating it to that position? And to me, that's we're all on the same page with this. So, anything else you want to add for the day?
No. This is a good convo.
Happened fast. It went faster than I thought it was going to. So just I would encourage you, if we're actually starting to generate traction on Spotify and Apple. So if you listen to this, share it with people, let them listen to it, like, review, all of those things. Subscribe as a follower. We don't cost anything. It's free. This is just us talking about things that matter, because we've got kids that we want them to grow up. But like, share, review, do all the things, because the more we grow, the cooler our guests become. And until it's official and on the books and recorded, We do have some cool guests coming out in the very near future, so we'll see what happens with that. Until next time.
Until next time.
All right, we'll see you later.